Welcome everybody, and we have an enormous crowd here in the auditorium, which is tremendous. I see here that we've got 23 people on Zoom, as well as about, looks like about 26 here. Okay, so we have 49, so that is, so we have a quorum, so we can start.
Okay,
Yeah?
can we do to share screen?
Right,
Okay.
is it at the top of that?
Yeah, I'll put it onto slideshow now. I'm trying to get rid of this. And then
Slideshow.
slideshow
From the big Nini.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Wow.
Okay, good. You guys at home all good?
All right. Thanks, Neil. That looks absolutely stunning. And obviously a lot of preparation has gone into this. And we started at 6:30 on the nail. So let's go move to the next slide, please. It's everybody out there, your watches are just fast. You do also have your the QR code there with win a trip to Oshkosh. Now, this is a thing that Neil designed, and it was accepted. I was there at the presentation at Oshkosh when Neil was awarded a special award, and this MOC system, which is Members Awards for Chapter Help, and it's grabbed everybody's attention in the rest of EAA, where there are 260,000 members, which is quite phenomenal.
If they can just scan there.
Yeah, please would you scan that now? And we also have it for those of you here at the auditorium. It's also on the door and in the pub and on the door at the back of the hall as well. So we'll give you about 30 seconds more for you to be able to scan it. We'll just check if that is.
It'll come up during the slideshow as well.
Okay. Yeah. And as Neil says, it'll come up during the slideshow.
Okay, can we go?
Right. 322 new members: Graham 2+3, Duplessis, Michael Marcus, Michael Marriott, Aldert Nivote. Well, you people, you have come to the right organization, and we hope that your expectations of EAA will be more than, I'm pretty sure they'll be more than adequately met. You enjoy EAA, the more you participate, the more points you get. And the more you participate, the more enjoyable EAA actually is. And for you guys that have joined now, the network is actually phenomenal. And if you need anything to do with aviation or with our type of recreational aviation, it's available. And on the various websites, we've got EAA, we've got EAA group, information groups. And if you just go on to EAA on WhatsApp, you can see the groups that are available. Now, special guests here this evening, I see besides the presenters, I see here there's, I saw Hayley Hopper. There's Hayley at the back. And I remember when she was just a little girl, and she's the older of the two. And anyway, lovely to see you, Hayley. I haven't seen you for many years. And anyone else? There's Alan. And Mr. Chairman, that Bruce Harrison, as the chairman of the Royal Air Force Officers Club, the vice chairman of South African Air Force Association. And our presenters this evening will be Kevin Hopper, Sundine, and Aidan for the Orion Cub. The presentation, yeah, and we would, I heard it on the radio, it actually annoyed me, he said, let's hear it for them. This is actually a phenomenon, but when we'll get down to it, and also for the current members, and thanks for you people who've taken the trouble to come along. You find, you know, that as they say at Oshkosh, that if you come to these events, like we've got Sun and Fun coming up, you always see old friends. And I see there are a couple of people here that I haven't seen for a long time. And the other thing is you go to an event, you see old friends and you make new ones. And it's amazing how enduring friends are that you make in EAA if you approach it with the right attitude.
Right. I did change. This is birthday list for October. I did change it, but somebody
Okay.
can save it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the October list. Just the spelling is a little wrong at the bottom there, but these gremlins do creep in.
For sure.
Right. And daar gaat hy. No, you play.
No, this is you. We recorded you.
Yeah.
Playing
Okay, yeah, but you know, I'm just two fingers. Yeah. And just note the birthdays there that we've had. We've gone through a few of them already. Roy Miller would be today. Neil Bowden tomorrow. Good heavens. We've got a 21st on our hands.
Not another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another orbit of the sun. And as a matter of interest, that John Ilsley, it's his 60th orbit of the sun completed today. And this is also one of the phenomenal people in our society. He's absolute amazing guy, what he does for aviation and Boys High, and what he does for education. Absolute wonderful fellow. So really best wishes to John Ilsley. Right. Coming up are the following. Sun and Fun. At Brits, they have done major upgrades and renovations. They've retarred the runway and painted it beautifully. It really, it's absolutely stunning. But they're having the World Rally Championships, I think, in November, Guy Fawkes Day. And this is in anticipation, but they said that they would rush it so that EAA could have the use of these lovely facilities. They've upgraded the clubhouse as well, and it really looks smart. There was a WhatsApp little slideshow that went out to the people on the WhatsApp group, detailing what they have done there. And I just, people need to know, probably do realize that these guys go to so much trouble to facilitate us using their airfield and their clubhouse and their facilities for Sun and Fun, and they're hanging on to us, whatever they can do. And I think this is just so tremendous. And at every opportunity, I try and make sure that they understand our appreciation. Is one of the events that's coming up there, besides what is there, that Roel Janssen built an RV6, and he said, man, this thing's a tail dragger, they're dangerous. And he's putting it on a pole as a wind indicator. And that will be erected on Saturday morning. The pole is all in position next to, and I said, where's it going to be? So he said, next to the maze that Von put up with those. Irene, what are those little things with all the little succulents? Speckworm.
Yeah.
He's got a maze in the shape of an airplane made out of speckworms plants, and it's actually very cute. And they also have, you know, they remember the people that have passed on of their club members and people who've had association with the Brits Flying Club. And they're just a bunch of good people. There is accommodation in the area. We hope a lot of people will camp there. The EAA has ensured that there are going to be ablutions and additional toilets. And it's always fun if you're going to be able to camp if you are that way inclined. There are 4 B&Bs that we list. A couple are close by to the north of the airfield. And I'm staying at the Marula Lodge, which is 10 k's down the road in the city of Brits. And they're giving us, they brought their price down to compete with the others at 600 Rand a night, which is very reasonable, and it's absolutely top quality, and that's my favorite place to stay. And there is space. The flying competitions, there's going to be a rally which is organized by Rob Jonkers and Frank,
Ian, I think.
Ian Pilling.
Ian Myburg.
Oh, Ian Myburg. All right, that's that Myburg. Derek.
I'm not sure if Ian's organising it. Remember, they've got flying practice for their
Really?
AR, so they're
Okay.
going to be flying out of Aviators Paradise on the weekend.
Okay.
So Rob's organising, I'm not exactly sure.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
All right.
And a
Chap
spot
that-
landing.
Okay. That chap who's just been speaking was Derek Orford, and his daughter Taryn and Marburg are married, or I think, I hope. Anyway, it might just be sporting. But Derek used to be our technical officer of 322 for a couple of years, which we do appreciate. Nice to see you here, Derek. Aircraft judging will be you. Have we got judges?
The team, yeah, Paul Lestrucci is going to be on
Okay.
the team with Pierre van der Walt.
All right. Lestrucci and Paul Lestrucci and Pierre van der Walt, and Stephen Teron is doing it in proxy because he's in Florida swimming right now. Okay. And Benny Duplessis from the Transcorp Gliding Club is making available glider rides for EAA members at a nominal charge. And if you haven't done it, it really is something worth experiencing. Awards party in the evening that we have no official awards, but Neil will be taking equipment along in case we need to do certificates or hand out, 1,000 Rand
Aircraft
cash
judging and that,
prizes
yeah.
and
Aircraft judging.
yeah, for the aircraft judging and
The
also
rally and all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And those prizes will be in the vicinity of 500 litres for first, 400 for second, and so it goes. Fuel.
You're going to pay. You're going to pay.
And we have some commercial exhibitors on the scene.
Lots of them.
Plenty, and they are crowding to get in, which is very good sign for EAA, and they get good exposure. And the catering by Brits is that they'll have their breakfast, lunches, and there'll be a braai on Friday evening and also on Saturday evening. And Vanessa Richardson, who is sitting here, who gave us a beautiful windsock, has said that last year there was a hell of a storm during the awards ceremony, and the windsock actually burst while we were there, but it had a camera on it. And they said, no problem. They were given a new one an hour or two before that, made by Vanessa, which was really much appreciated. So she said she can't give them a windsock every year. They've got to look after their stuff. So this year she's sponsoring all the spices, which, it's the people are human. They didn't scale the spices last year, but the campers had their little braai around the corner. So they grabbed all the braai spices and ducked. We thought, this is a poor show, but they didn't scale it. They were just using it. All right. And so those two braais, and Frank Bonfill's person has threatened to bring his guitar along and his karaoke outfit, but that's a great variable that we cannot concretely forecast. Right, thanks. He doesn't always do that. Okay, here are the places. Ayrton, just down the road, I've also stayed there. I know Maury stayed there as well. Very nice. And Bruce, you stayed there. And yeah, thank you, Maria.
But if anyone wants a list of that, they can contact me, or I'll put it on the
Okay.
group again. I'll put it
Yeah,
back on
and
the-
yes. All right. So those things are on the links, at least the websites and the various posters that Neil has put together and published widely. Okay, Blomelot is where the ATCs and our safety officer will be staying, just up the drag. Marula Guest House, well, that is just, for me, that's the best of the lot. Okay. And the contact details are on the available from Neil. Right. Some scenes from last year. We've also, once again, we've organized one of those stretch tents to fit in there. It's I remember you saying it's a 6 by 12, 9 by 12 meter stretch tent. That's Rodney Chin's area, that Aronka. And there's people drinking more than they should, and a braai. Okay.
That's the weather for this
Okay,
week.
and the weather's looking good. Just for Saturday, it looks like you've got wind at 17 kilometers now. What's a kilometer?
It's
a short distance.
double of a knot.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So it's actually calm winds. Pretty the bad winds of today have just abated. And you see the temperatures. The minimum temperature there is going to be 18 at 6 a.m. And only guys with weak bladders are up at 6 a.m. Right, and the temperatures are quite acceptable, with a little bit warmish on Saturday, around about 32 degrees, and ish. The evening, it'll be 36 degrees at 6 p.m. on Friday.
Good for a braai.
Yeah, that's braai, ideal braai weather. And they've got beer there that's colder than Czech air hostesses' hearts. Okay. Right, Neil, I'm not up to speed with this, but this accident reduction program has been handled by the CAA, and there's the details, and those details are available, and I'm pretty sure that they will be on the website and on the various groups, WhatsApp groups. I've seen them there.
I've also published
Okay, in African Pilot.
and APA.
Okay, thanks. And APA News, he said. Right, and without further ado, we bring our heroes of the moment. Come on in.
Okay.
Right.
And you guys are going to sit here. Come sit around here. Put Carl in the middle.
I want to sit next to Kevin. Well, Kevin.
Let's do this.
Okay. Do you want to sit here and drive it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, you may need to put that. It doesn't work on glass.
That's fine.
So you got to.
Very
I'm just tapping on the side and it goes forward.
Are you
Okay.
Dean? Move the mouse to the
Now,
side.
just before they start this, that my knowledge of this airplane, that way back, Kevin, as many of you will know, that he gave us the vestiges of a teddy, and he made 7 teddies in about the turn of the century. 2007, 9 of them.
No, 2009 was the last one.
2009, there were 19 of them. Okay, but they were a very successful airplane, a Cub lookalike. And then, but it was made of wood and wooden fabric, which is nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't grab people's imagination nowadays when there's metal is available and composites. And we got a teddy fuselage and we spent it. I happened to be the chairman at the time, and we checked out with our team that there were 37 people who said, please, yeah, let's get it and we'll go for it. So we had the first get together where the build day, we had about 25, the second one we had about 20, then the third one we had about 10, and then there were about 5 of us that carried on for about 18 months on the airplane, and we were obviously not going to finish it and or complete the construction. And the Lustrucci's gave us an engine for it, which is really sad to lose that because of the, that's what EAA is about, or one of the things that EAA is about. Anyway, we returned it to Kevin, which was the right thing to do. And I've seen how he has completed the fuselage, but then he had a look at some of the things that he'd done in the teddy, and so much could be improved. So they've gone into this Orion Cub, because it's a Cub lookalike. It has certain outstanding features. I've watched the construction of this and the design, and these young Mughai that's what they said I must call it. These young scientists, partners of Kevin in the project, have put in tremendous amount of thought and discussion, and they've made it a fun project. And so consequently, they've come out with a happy airplane, happily designed, but with amazing innovation. And it's light, it can carry 400 kilograms. Is for a little airplane like this. At the moment, they've got 105 horsepower engine, 100 horsepower engine, but it can go up to 200. But the 100 horsepower was to keep it as an LSA, which is less regulated than a normal category aircraft. Still non-type certified, but I'm pretty sure that this airplane is going to be certified without much trouble. But certification is a very, very expensive process. So, but in the meantime, I'm not going to pretend I know enough about this. I'll hand over to who's going to speak first. Okay, Daddy, Kevin is going to. There you are. On the
Thanks,
woord.
Carl. Okay, the first thing I've got to say is Neil has asked us to come here this evening, not really to talk about the Orion Cub. He just wanted to know why we haven't been at the meetings for the last 20 months. So,
He wanted a sub.
So we're going to account for about 19,300 hours. So it could be a long evening, but sit back, relax, take another beer. It could be good. Anyway, Orion aircraft, we're presenting tonight the Orion Cub. It's a new Cub type variant, and I always call it the same but different. The big differences between the standard Cub and what we have here is not even the materials we use, but just the way we put the thing together. We believe the Cub flew so well. Let's use it and base our airplane on that. And what we've done is simply turned to modern machining methods. The whole design, we designed it on a CAD program, and we have got amazing results. Even if I say so, all the tubing that you see, there's not a single tube, there's not a single part on this airplane that we cannot replicate with without using machine. So every tube, every fish mouth on the tube, every joint has been cut by a laser. So to replicate it is quite easy. And the same goes for the wing. We've used a CNC router machine, and all the ribs, all the skins, everything that we've got on there, right down to the bell cranks, have been machined. So that's part of the end result of the render. So you will see very small things like the wingtips. We hadn't designed the wingtips at this stage, but to go back a little while, I want to say the reason for having Aidan Canton with us is very simple. What you're seeing on the screen is what the man can do. So we've used him to do the rendering, to do the CAD drawings, to help us with the design, to come up with various ideas. And then we've got Dean, who I brought on when we started building in 2020. I've got to say, firstly, both of them, neither Dean nor Aidan had ever built an airplane. And I don't know how much work they've been able to do by hand in the past. But when I said to them, we're going to build an airplane, they were, all right, let's build an airplane. And I don't think they realized exactly what they let themselves in for. And that's a good thing, because I don't think they'd have been here tonight if I had told them from the beginning. So Dean was put in charge of building a jig. He said, Dad, I can't weld. So I said, by the time we finish the jig, you'll be able to weld. And believe me, he can weld. So I'm very happy that he's joined us, and both Aidan and Dean. And I must say, we've only got 3 people in the team at the moment, but it's been amazing. What we've been able to learn together, what I've been able to teach them, and even what they've been able to teach me, to be able to build and to do things together has been absolutely amazing.
If we were told how many late nights there were going to be, we probably wouldn't have joined.
So the people outside can hear.
So I said, if we were told how many late nights there were actually going to be in a freezing cold hangar, we may not have joined. Shall I continue?
Yeah, okay.
So the picture that you're seeing on the screen now is what our Christmas tree for 2020 looked like. So in December 2020 is actually when we officially started the build of the Orion Cub. So we started with, first of all, spending well over, I'd say, at least 10 months doing all of the design work and the drawings and everything before we actually started the physical build. And what that entailed was every single tube that you see in this picture lying on the floor was, as Kevin said before, CNC laser cut. So every single profile on every single end of the tube was already pre-designed so that we could basically fit the entire fuselage together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And the jig itself was done very much the same way.
So just go back to the Christmas tree. Just going back to the Christmas tree. That was obviously December of 2020. When we laid these parts out on the floor, we actually thought it was going to resemble some sort of a fuselage. And we really believed at the time, and I'm not kidding you, we believed we had made a mistake. Everything that we saw there, not a single part fitted. And then as we slowly built the jig, having never built a jig, 3D jig, the one that did, a 3D third dimensional thing, we had to build it in space. We didn't have a single part that we could put into the jig. Like normal, you would have an engine mount and you could make a jig around it. We had nothing and we were making something around it. And that was quite exciting. And every part that you see there that was put together was put in space in the pure, genuine belief that when it was finished, we'd end up with a fuselage.
We had our drawings obviously to go off of, but it was completely starting from scratch. We started out with a pile of tubes on the floor and we looked at it and thought, well, hang on, what are we doing here?
Can you hear at the back there?
So eventually we started forming and actually turning into something. A funny little story about the actual laser cut tubes and everything. We were so close to not actually having anything to do in that December, because when we went to get the parts cut, the company that we went to, it was the day that they were closing. So we arrived there in the morning. I still had been sitting with them for about 3 weeks prior, and we were waiting for our parts to arrive, and they just hadn't got to it. So we showed up there on the very day that they were supposed to be closing, and we got there and said, listen guys, we have a deadline to meet, we really need our parts today. And obviously we got a few very sour faces from the guys working there. And to our great fortune, the owner of the company happened to be there, and he was a pilot himself. He flew slings and the like. And when he found out what we were wanting to do, he forced his employees to stay there and help us until they were finished. So needless to say, we probably made 1 or 2 enemies that day. But we didn't mind because we got to go home with all of our parts laser cut, and we could spend December at 6:30 in the evening, mind you. So we were able to spend our December starting the build of the Orion.
Excuse me. So as you guys can see on the screen, the laser oops. Well, what happened was my dad, Kevin's laser level license was actually revoked. He is not allowed to touch the laser anymore in the workshop. So what happened was we were busy building the jig, and in the middle of the jig, we actually made marks so we could actually line up the laser lines. And whenever you tilt this little Ryobi laser level, it screams at you. It makes an annoying little sound. And one day, my dad, in his wisdom, went pressing buttons, and the machine actually kept quiet. So he said, yes, guys, I actually figured this machine out. I've switched the noise off. So we carry on building the jig, and you stand back, and all your tubes they look like they're lying off at 45 degrees. When you stand back, you go, that's not straight. That's not level to anything, but the laser says it's true. Us not knowing, Aiden and myself not knowing much about the laser, because we want the master to drive the laser, we just carried on. Needless to say, we had to cut up half the jig after that because we'd actually gotten a new laser from a
Minor mistake, only 2 days.
so that's where the extra hours came into for the jig. So needless to say, we had to cut open half the jig just so we can straighten it all out after getting a Hilti laser from Derek Frasca. And the whole reason we found out that this laser can actually lock is as we put Derek's laser onto it, it also set at 45 degrees. And this one actually had pictures. So my dad could actually follow them. It wasn't, it wasn't just a case of poking buttons. You could actually follow the pictures. And he said, my goodness, this thing's actually locked. So I went around poking on the Ryobi and I could find that this one could lock as well. So from that day forward, only Aiden and myself were allowed to drive the lasers. My dad was just there to say a little bit left, a little bit right. So needless to say, if you see any laser action in the hangar, it will be either driven by myself or Aiden. My dad is to keep his hands in his pockets.
Is the sound back on?
The sound, yes.
The sound's back on. Yes.
And what's it sound like?
It's a beep beep.
Oh.
But what's nice is I've been upgraded a little. I know how to carry the level. So what you're seeing there, sorry.
Beast.
What you're seeing on the screen is the jig. As we were finalizing it, we started populating it. You can see on the bottom right-hand picture where we've actually got some of the laser cut tubes in the jig. And to our surprise, everything actually fitted. And our Christmas tree that was lying on the floor that didn't look like it was going to do anything, ended up fitting.
Can I ask Carl if we can maybe dim these lights a bit? It's
Yeah.
blurring out.
Yeah.
I'll get Neil to.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not, that's better.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
Okay, you can go on. So for the first time, we've actually got the entire fuselage within the jig, which you can't really see very clearly, but it is inside there. And it's for the first time we actually realized, boy, we can build an airplane. This thing actually is going to, well, we can build a fuselage. We can actually get it inside the jig. To tell you, the jig is made out of 18 separate pieces. It's got a bed, it's got a top piece, and then the firewall is a separate piece, and there's a whole host of separate pieces. Every little tube, every little piece that's in there can be removed. You can unclip it and you can take it apart. So to populate it, we did it so many times, Dean was able to do the entire thing in an hour by himself. So from a Christmas tree to an assembled jig. And the first thing that I've had to say is it's a huge, huge learning curve for me. For many, many years, I've been building and rebuilding airplanes, and it's been fantastic. But to take a fuselage or to take something and want to replicate it over and over has been completely and utterly different. Everything that you do, you have to say to yourself, well, how can we do this in the quickest and easiest manner? Because we're going to replicate this whole thing. So from a Teddy fuselage, which used to take about a month to put together, we can actually produce a single fuselage in 2 days. Now that's quite a lot of difference, and it suddenly becomes commercially viable to do this. Okay? So on around about the 20th of January, we pulled out the fuselage for the first time, all tack welded, and we stood it on its nose, and we actually weighed it, and we wanted to see whether it weighed more or less what the computer said, and we were 200 grams out. That was all. And that would go and account for the way I welded it possibly, or something small in the whole assembly of it. But having taken this jig and spent 650 hours just on the jig, minus the 2 days, these are problems. But we were able to produce the fuselage, get it out, and it was a very emotional day for all of us. We had spent so much time, our entire December had been at work, probably 10, 12 hours a day, working, and probably 14 to 16 hours a day, every day at work to produce what we've done. And it was very emotional to see. And when we took it out, we actually stood back and said, wow, guys, it looks like our drawing. And that was quite a fun thing to see. There's just a couple of pictures of us in the bottom corner is enjoying the moment, having taken this, all the effort that we put in and actually got to a point where we've got a fuselage. And it's for anybody who's built something like this, it's quite amazing. All the effort that you put in, and you can stand back and say the plan and what we've got looks similar. We won't measure anything, but it's pretty close. Then there's always milestones. The shirts that we're wearing tonight, Dean and Aidan went out and had them made specifically for us. The 3 hats that we've got on our heads got signatures on. The only 3 in the world. There aren't any others.
Could I tell them the story behind the shirt?
Stand by.
Yeah. So the shirts that we're wearing now, there's actually a little bit of a story behind it. So initially, Kevin was unaware that we were having the shirts made. So Dean and I decided that we wanted to give Kevin a bit of a surprise. So we spent about, I think, 2 or 3 weeks designing them, having them sent off to be printed and made and everything. And then we snuck off out of the hangar and went and fetched them. While Kevin was out and about doing something or other, we found our little window of opportunity and we went and got them. And we came back to the hangar and we made sure that he was there before we walked in, and Dean and I put the shirts on. And we walked in and Kevin stopped us. And at first he didn't quite realize and he didn't think much of it. And then he looked at us again and was like, hang on, isn't that our logo on your shirt? And he said, yes, it is. I said, no, where did you get those shirts from? Like, no, man, what are you talking about? We've had them, we've always had them. For yesterday, we've had them for ages. And we thought it was a nice little joke just to rip Kevin a bit, and then gave him the shirt. And that is actually when we took that picture on that day. Oh, yes.
So if I can just, that is our,
Well,
so if you, I don't know how many of you guys can actually read what is on the shirt. This is kind of the company slogan at the moment. So during the jig build, we were actually welding things. So when you look at it, you go, is this in the right place? And then my dad would go, well. So we thought, okay, well, we'll weld it here. And then obviously with the laser issues, there was 2 days worth of difficulties, but the word wellum stuck. So whether you're cutting something, whether you're welding something, whether you're drilling something, whether you're painting, wellum. So that actually became the running joke through the whole build. And whenever you looked at something, and Aidan or my dad would go, yes, do you think we need to put it in there? We go, well. So that was kind of our seal of approval as to just put it in because I'm tired of this now. So no, that is, so if you ever come into the hangar and you hear someone saying, well, just know that stay away from that area for a few minutes.
what we did was we basically broke the program or the build into various programs, the jigs, the tail section, the wings, because all of my experiences said never try and build an aeroplane. And that's what I tried to express to Dean and Aidan from the beginning. Don't build an aeroplane. Build components and stand back and say, I built a tail or I built an aileron. And in our case, we built the jig, we built molds, we built the tail, we built absolutely everything. But to keep us going, we would end up breaking it down and saying, what are we going to achieve by the end of the week or by the end of the day? And every little goal was celebrated and we enjoyed it. And it's been, not everybody has always agreed. Dean doesn't agree with our paint scheme. Aidan doesn't like it when I say to him, well, let's redraw the fuselage. But I've already done it 8 times. Well, the 9th time will be fine. Let's get it right.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
He's not exaggerating, by the way.
And it's not an exaggeration. We've now, as of today, done 11 renditions of our fuselage. And we start afresh. We don't add to it. We don't take away from it. We start afresh. So when Aidan gets a bit, what do you call it, miff, then we know we're going in the right direction. But everything that we've done, we tried on, as you see us sitting in the fuselage to see that everything fits. We've downloaded little models of what do you call those, people, so we could put them in the fuselage, see what they are. And we've tried to make it very basic. It's the basic aeroplane, and that's what we're trying to achieve. Everything is as basic as possible. The space frame, we've used aluminium for covering, pretty much the same as what any other airplane manufacturer was doing in the time. The only difference is we did everything with a router or a CNC machine. The cowling is another CNC machine part. You'll see in the center a rendering that Aidan did of our cowling. It wasn't completed at that stage. And then what we did was we took a CNC hot wire cutting machine, and you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, layers. We've layered polystyrene and we've stuck it all together, and then we sanded it to shape. And without losing the shape, because we've got various markings on it, we actually then sprayed it with a substance called polyurea, which is quite hard. You have to sand it down, and then we painted primers and stuff over the top to give us our final shape. And from there, we ended up making a mold. Go to the next one, I think it is. So what you're seeing there is actually the plug. It's not the actual cowling at all. Inside there's a big piece of polystyrene, and it's got a polyurea and spray filler and all sorts of weird and wonderful things on the outside just to give us the shape. It allows us to take our 3D image, turn it into a proper part, and then we can visualize it. If we wanted to change something, then it was easy to do. So this is yet another milestone. The photograph that you see at the bottom with the three stooges, in the middle of winter, you can see by the hats.
And the short pants.
And the short pants. That was, yeah, that was a milestone. First time that airplane had ever been outside. You'll also see, if you look closely, the landing gear. It's a composite gear that we put on. It was the idea, or it is the idea, to have a blade gear as well as a bush gear. And what we had done is we've made a composite gear, which is quite strong enough to be used, but we decided to use the bush gear for the actual flying. Here we can see the beginnings of the engine mount. You can see how bare the engine is at the moment. We had to make the mount come out in the center of the cowling. We put in 1 degree of down thrust, correction, 1.2 down thrust and 1.2 degrees of right thrust. So the engine is sitting off center, which makes it a lot more difficult to get everything right. So the engine, the cowling, everything is completely skewed. If you take the cowling and you put it on the ground, the top of the cowling is no longer square. Everything is skewed. So it just makes it more difficult. And we thought, well, let's rise to the challenge. And I'm pleased to say we have. We even went as far as having a custom exhaust pipe made, tuned length exhaust. Everything that you see that we do, we've tried to do so that we can replicate it. So we went to the guys in Pretoria, De Graaf, and said, make an exhaust pipe, but don't just make an exhaust pipe. We want a jig so we can replicate it. So everything that's here can be replicated. From the molds of the seats, which you'll see next, which are carbon fiber. We made the molds. We've done absolutely everything to replicate it. Now, if anybody's looked inside of Derek Fresca's radial rocket, you'll see that seat. While we were making the mold, Derek needed a seat. So I said to him one Saturday, well, let's have a look and see if this fits in there. And the next thing I had to do is make 2 more seats because I didn't have them. They were in the radial rocket.
Beautiful.
We also used a lot of 3D printed parts. So that tail wheel that you see there is a 3D printed part from the drawings that Aidan's made us. The reason for it was to machine a piece of aluminium into the shape is costly. While we used a 3D printer, it becomes very cheap, and within a day, you've got all your parts. You can see that everything fits. You can check it, how well it works. All the hole sizes, everything is there. So it becomes rather easy. And we decided to put a shock absorber in the tail. And that shock absorber is also a little bit more special than just a standard shock. It's got what they call rebound damping. So we can adjust the amount of rebound. If the tail wheel hits the ground, whether it shoots it up in the ground or it absorbs the energy. And it's amazing. You can drop the airplane from about 1 meter high, and it doesn't bounce. It just hits the ground and stays right there, and it doesn't move. And we've followed that on by making shock absorbers for the main gear in the same vein. So we've got 2 huge big shock absorbers with oil damping. It's got springs on the inside, and it's well damped, so it absorbs all the bounces you can give it. Now, Dale has tried really hard. Dale de Klerk, who's done all the test flying, has tried really hard to bounce the airplane, and the most I could see was about 3 inches, and that was it. He just says, I can't get it to bounce, which is pretty good. The covering, we started doing covering. That was another thing that I was teaching Dean and Aidan. They have never done covering. You must remember, they've never built an airplane. They've never done anything like this in their life. And then they tried to teach me how to do it, which was quite fun. And I said, guys, you'll see this when it's painted. No, paint will cover that. Well, now I've got 2 guys standing back and saying, I wish I'd fixed that. So they've learned a bit. So we know the next one will be even better. They've done a brilliant job. I've got to say, for guys who have never done anything, they've done an absolutely amazing job. They have learned a lot, and we've had a lot of fun. There's the elusive stitching in the bottom corner. Dean and Aidan still haven't managed. They keep on telling me I'm going too fast. And I said, I can't go any slower. Anyway, I've probably done, I don't know, 65,000 stitches or something by now when I worked it out. We've also gone even further with the covering. Silver paint that you see that's being applied in the bottom left-hand corner has been specifically formulated for us by Paint Corps, a friend of mine, Greg Williams. And it's a water-based acrylic paint. It's a latex acrylic paint, so it's the latest technology. It's got imported aluminum particles from Germany, and we've actually been using it for a number of years, and it is the most fantastic stuff, maybe because we use it, but it doesn't smell, it's waterborne, it's water-based, and it's absolutely easy to use. You can apply any type of top coat on it.
Eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly. Then this is just showing the lengths that some people will go to mask. There was one little piece of masking tape that came loose, and there was somebody sticking his legs out the bottom. What we were doing with the color scheme, first of all, we obviously had the airplane painted silver, and then everything was painted white. That would bring out the bright colors that we had chosen to use. But instead of sticking a decal on the side, you'll notice in the top frame there's a logo. That's the logo that Aidan spent, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks designing, the Orion, and it's absolutely magical. So I'll quickly stop there and say where the Orion came from was my dad and I built motor cars many, many years ago, probably at hair then. I don't know if we could, but anyway, we built motor cars, and the one car that he used to build, and he used to sell it, was called the Orion. It was a replica of an MG TD car, and it had a Volkswagen engine or a Ford engine, all depends on the chassis. And he did those, and they were called the Orion. And I was going to call this airplane the Teddy 2. So my dad became gravely ill, and he was actually in hospital. And I said to him, so that I can remember you, I'll call it the Orion.
Fantastic. Oh, my.
We are very fortunate to have a spray booth that can take the whole airplane, not the wings included, but we'll do the components, so the fuselage, the wings going separately. And I've got 2 guys, especially who have never learned to mask. And I have to say, Dean has astounded me. We've done 3 or 4 airplanes, and I don't have to mask anything. I'm just a painter. So it's great. He's done brilliantly. We've done some aerobatic airplanes. We've done some with checker blocks on it, which are a little bit of a challenge, but he rises to the occasion every single time. So what we've done there is we painted the airplane white, and as you can see in the bottom left-hand picture, we have basically sprayed over a decal that was applied and then pulled it off. And then over the top of everything, we apply a clear coat, which just gives us a very nice finish. And if you're careful, it gives you a really, really good finish, which you'll see. Oops, a little bit fast. So that's as it came out the spray booth. Nothing was applied or done over the top. In fact, there's one picture in the spray booth. We are using a product that comes from Spain. We import it from Spain. It's very, very elastic. And I've been using it for years. And it's, to me, one of the best products that we can use. Just a bit of attention to detail. The top picture in the left-hand corner is an arc duct that we put in that is actually cooling our oil cooler at the moment. And we've used carbon fiber and we've applied a little logo to it and sprayed over clear. We've done on the bottom right-hand corner, it's a pity we don't have a close picture, but the two inserts that you can see there on the inlet, we didn't want to just have a big gaping hole. So we went to the trouble of actually drawing and printing with carbon fiber filament. So the two inserts there have got a honeycomb finish. I don't know how well you can see it up there. And it's got our logo embedded in it. So it's trying to be different, but trying to be the same. So we've tried to keep it modern, which is what we've done. The shape of the cowling is very automotive, if I can call it that. It's not the standard usual shape of a cowling. And I enjoy what I call round, square but round. And that's what we've kind of done is I like hard, sharp lines, and you can see them on the side of the cowling. And it's a blend. Everything that we've done is obviously for us as the designers, it's pleasing, but I have to say we've got so many people pleased by what they see in terms of the shape. So it's really, really satisfying for us. There's a number of parts. Another one of Dean's job descriptions is turning things on the lathe. He doesn't know how, is what he told me. Well, I see some damn fine parts, and they're all there. We've machined the yoke for the trim screw at the back. We've got an electrically operated trim jack, which operates the entire stabilizer. It moves the stabilizer up and down, and that is our trim. Then in the wing, we've got bell cranks, and every single piece has been machined out of billet. That's our pedal. And again, it's a billet machine thing. That's not a rendering. That's actually a photograph of what our pedals looks like. So if you look in the aeroplane, that's what you'll see. A little aluminum pedal made out of a solid billet. Engine installation, basic standard Rotax with our custom exhaust. And you can actually see the shape coming from around the cowling, and to fit everything in, it looks a little bit more populated than earlier on when we had the engine in on its own. We wondered what we were going to do with all the space. And after we started doing the final assembly, we were wondering if we had enough space for everything. And the good part about it is we've designed on CAD, we've got solid models of this engine, which is a 912. We've got solid models of the 915. We've got solid models of a 914 turbo, and every single one of those can fit within our cowling. And that's the beauty of doing CAD drawings and solid models. Our instrument panel is also slightly different to norm. It's not just a flat panel. We've chosen to go bold colors simply because I believe the airplane's meant to be fun. We want people who, instead of playing golf on a Wednesday afternoon, want to go out flying. So what we're doing is saying, well, let's go and have fun. Let's put all the fun, and that's why we went for the carbon fiber seats and the fancy little upholstery. We wanted it to be fun. But we've also done one thing else. Instead of having a completely flat panel, we've allowed the panel to optically be the same distance from your eye, whether you're looking at the left or the right or even in the center. So our panel is slightly curved. Although it's flat, it's curved. And it's actually given us a lot more space. So the big gap in the middle would be for either your iPad as we're using it now, or a 10-inch touchscreen EFIS. Our wing, here again, you can see on the left-hand side. Clearly I wasn't there because there's a laser. I can clearly see a laser. Our entire wing is also our own. Every single part of it, right down to the spars, which we've had extruded. It's a 6061 T6 aluminum that's been extruded for us. We were fortunate enough to find people in South Africa who could do the extrusion for us. They've been really good to us. They have really, the product that we're getting is superior. It is absolutely beautiful. What we then do is once we take it from them, we measure it up just to make sure. We put it on a CNC router machine, and all the holes, all the lightning holes are in the ribs or in the spar, and we drill all the holes for the ribs. So every single rib has a hole in the station, and a doubler, every bolt hole is drilled in there. Now, to accommodate for the 51% rule, which the United States has at the moment, we've undersized every hole. So we only drill a 2.5 millimeter hole. Although our rivets are 3.2 millimeter, we allow the builder to do a certain amount. So even on our ribs, all the ribs, the end that goes against the spars, top and bottom, are only 2.5 millimeter diameter. So we can use a cleco, put it in, and then when everything's fitted together, they have to actually go and drill it out to a 3.2. We even went further, and if you look at the rib, I don't know if there's any other ribs, but if you look at the rib, we've actually we designed and built our own press so that we could press the little bells into the ribs. We could press that little stiffener in between the holes. Everything that we've got here, we can replicate and produce in-house. And that's been the most fun, is to be able to work out how we can do it. The fortunate part for me is I have a small background in the motor industry. I worked for General Motors also back when I had hair. And I've learned a lot from that, and I've been able to carry it through. The big difference is pressing steel and pressing aluminium is not quite the same. So we do learn, and we've got it right. I think at this point in time, it will take us 2 days to assemble a complete wing.
Yeah, I'll explain to them. So the process of putting the entire wing together that makes it so easy is with every single wing skin that we've got there, every single hole in each skin is pre-drilled for you. But we wanted to avoid the idea of match hole drilling, specifically because we don't have a temperature controlled environment to cut and bend the aluminium. So what we've done instead is on every single rib, we already formed the flanges around the rib, and we've got a special jig that allows us to draw a center line on every single flange of the rib. Then what you do is you assemble your wing in the jig. So you've got your top and bottom spar sitting as you can see it there. And then your leading edge is always looking up. And then what you do is you hang your skin along the edge of your spar. So the edge of your skin will line up with the edge of your spar because the entire skin is CNC cut. And then you can see through the holes that are already drilled for you in the skin. You line up the center line that you've drawn on the rib, and then you drill a hole, put a clacker, and drill a hole, put a clacker. And you do that for all of your ribs on all the skins. So the top skin, the bottom skin, the leading edge skins, and what we refer to as the false base skin, which is basically just the trailing edge skin that the aileron and flap sit inside of. And doing it this way has allowed us to make it very, very easy for not only us as the manufacturer, but also for the kit builder at home. So as Kevin just said, 2 people took 2 days to assemble the entire wing finished. So you've basically got, barring your flap and your aileron, you've got an entire wing in 2 days. So if you were a really dedicated home builder and you had the time, you could probably finish both of your wings in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, maybe. And that depends on whether or not you decide to actually dimple your skins or not, if you want to do flush rivets or raised head rivets. But if you do the flush riveting, then 2 weeks.
The whole reason why we did the jig standing up is for the kit builder in his single car garage. You don't need this massive, expansive table. You could literally build it on the side of the wall and still park your car at night. What makes this one so nice is, I don't know if you guys can see in the bottom right-hand corner, there's 3 little orange uprights. In those uprights, there's a threaded rod with a little plate on it. So your garage can be tilted to 45 degrees. You can still level your wing off. So with the laser,
If you've got a laser.
if you've got a laser and you know how to work it, You can then use the laser to horizontally level your bottom spar. And I don't know if you can see on the left-hand side of the picture, the laser is actually hitting one of the spaces that we have in between. What that does is, because your bottom spar is now level, your top spar with those spaces is also now level, so it could also ensure hands-off flight. Yes, so here in the top left-hand corner, those little orange pieces between the two spars, those are the spaces that we're talking about, and that just keeps all your ribs in the middle equally spaced, and it doesn't bow your spar. As you can see, top right-hand corner, it doesn't take a lot of experience to actually put the wing together. The aeroplane is still flying with me having riveted the whole thing together, so no experience needed on the riveting side. Within 2 weeks, if you have a dimpled skin, you can have a full set of wings. If you want to, you could actually have the polished finish, but that is a lot of work.
I know.
Cole would know. And it's just a lot of upkeep. But the reason we went for the dimpled skin was not for speed. If anything, we'd probably gain a quarter of a knot, a quarter of a mile an hour with the dimpled skin as opposed to the raised head rivets. But with the dimpled skin, as my dad has told us numerous times, when you do dimple the skin, you actually have to pick the two skins up out of each other before the rivet can actually break, before the rivet can shear. And to do that, to actually lift those two skins out of each other is actually quite impossible once they've been riveted together, which also then creates a much stronger wing because your skins are held so much stronger together.
Yeah, talking about stronger, our wing is capable of 850 kilograms all up weight at 4.8 G's positive and 3.8 negative. Even the pulleys on the right-hand side are in-house made. Dean made all the pulleys with bearings in them. He's set it up in the lathe and he's made every single part because we couldn't get pulleys of the right diameter. So once again, sitting where we are in South Africa, it's been very difficult. So we kind of stuck with doing everything ourselves. The left-hand bottom corner is a typical example of a flat hinge, and at the top is what it would look like once you've assembled and finally finished it. Snap bushings, which is supplied in the kit, cables, everything. And we just put two simple little split pins. Two little split pins which allow the to act as a keeper for the cable. There's the first aileron. Sorry, that's the flap. Also, again, the only thing there that is not formed in-house at the moment, just because our bender is too short, is the actual spar. We've got a friend who's got a bending brake long enough for us to bend up the spars, but we do all the skins in-house. We built ourselves if you saw the leading edge as well, we built a jig that actually radiuses the spars and the leading edge skins and the leading edges for the ailerons and the flaps. That is a 9-day operation. That, what you're seeing there, is our flap mechanism. And to get that to do what it's doing took us 9 days. Dean says 11, and it's probably more right. So we've got indents 15, 30, 45, and the big boy flaps are 60 degrees at the end. And we've actually used them once, and we don't think we've got enough power to actually warrant having that much flap.
The 60 degree, just hold them up.
So that's the first time we operated. Another milestone as we stand and watch. That's the first time we operated our flaps, and we realized how big they are, not knowing how effective they were going to be until Dale flew. It's always daunting, but we've chosen to have flaps which are longer than our ailerons. And so they're slightly longer than half span of the wing. Right-hand corner or right-hand top corner, you'll see the start of our wingtips. Now the wingtip was again made with foam, CNC foam cut, and then we sanded it and filled it and put the polyurea over the top, and then we molded it. And obviously now we can create wingtips left and right. Now remember, we have to do both left and right-hand wingtips, and they have to be the same. So it's been quite a work of art. Right-hand corner, even that flap correction, that lift strut has been extruded for us, unique to us. So there's not a single component that we've loaned from somewhere else. And down in the bottom is just the start of the painting of the wings. And there's our wingtip, which, because we can, is what we always say. We decided to put carbon fiber in there, and that logo is in carbon fiber. So you can actually see it through the wing, and you can actually feel it if you put your fingers over the top, so the blind people can enjoy it too, Carl.
And the Yanks like it as well, American people.
There's our new bush gear. Now in the center, the top left, you'll see the shock absorbers. And they are also designed around an 850 kilogram airplane. And we've chosen to put a little step on the inside. And we've even done tests recently to close up the landing gear and get rid of the drag. And we knew it was going to be significant, but we got a 5 mile/hour difference by just closing that up. So our next move is not only to close those up, but to create airfoil sections around the shock absorber and around the V-strut at the top. And there she stands for the first time outside ever as a complete airplane with its registration and new gear. And that was, I think, the day before we started the test flying. Another happy moment, you see the three in the little stooges in the corner there. That was the first time we ran the engine. The engine came from a flying school airplane, a few hours to go, and we said, this is the engine to put in. We know the engine works well, so let us use this engine. And we presently been surprised, it's running really well, except for one small issue where we had a mag drop. And I said to Aiden, don't even clean the plugs, let's put some others in. So I promptly went and got a set of plugs out of an engine that was in the shop. And we put it in, and we still had a mag drop. And 3 days later, we still had a mag drop, only to discover that the plugs that we had put in were faulty.
Sure, it's not very good.
That is the very first flyby down the runway on the maiden test flight. And if you look carefully, you'll see Dale's hands, both hands are sticking out the window. And he was waving us at us frankly. And I was wondering if he was trying to get out or if he was showing us he's happy with the airplane. But fortunately, he was happy. His second pass actually happened to be on one wheel. He didn't, he does this with his J3 Cub. And that was the second pass down the runway. And I was wondering if he's having a battle landing. But he came back after about an hour and 20 minutes and he called me on the radio and he said, oh, I've got to land now because I've got a Zoom meeting. Otherwise, you think he'd have still been flying. This is the actual flight.
It's too. It's called Dale's party trick.
Dale's party trick. And then we did a little bit of a photo sortie, A-to-air photo shoot, and had some fun. And we've just been enjoying it. We've done close to 20 hours now. I've actually got to fly it. And I was very, very impressed. Our predictions, everything that we've done, whether it's weight or whether it's speed, our projections on 100 horsepower was 118 miles an hour top speed. And I was very disappointed to see we got 117 miles an hour.
No, man.
Our projected stall speed, clean, 30 miles an hour, and we got 29 miles an hour. And the one that surprised us the most was our projection was 25 miles an hour for the stall with full flap. And one of my partners, Eddie, said to me, I'll eat my hat if you get that. Well, we had to get him a sombrero because we got down to 20 miles an hour. The second match of play. So it's slow speed handling is absolutely sublime. It's perfect. It really is brilliant. It's just a couple of pictures of what it looks like. There are the 3 happy campers on the day of the test flight. Well, I don't know about them, but I was terribly nervous. I could hardly swallow. Everybody asked would want some water. I didn't know what I was going to do with it because I couldn't swallow it.
Keep it in your mouth.
But after the airplane had flown, we were so happy that not just flown, but that Dale came back. Unlike the original Teddy, where Peter Lestrucci flew it, and I can remember these words forever. Peter opened the door with the Teddy and he said, Kev, it's not a Teddy, it's a pussycat. So when Dale opened the door, I was wanting to hear what he said, and he didn't say it's a pussycat. He said, don't change anything. So that's what we've done, changed nothing.
Just going back to the being nervous about test flights, the evening before, we stayed a little bit late at work and we said, all right, we're all going to be here at exactly 7 o'clock sharp the next morning for the test flight. We want to be ready for Dale. Not a single one of us arrived before or after, about 6:15. We were all there and we all arrived. We looked at each other and said, oh yeah, I knew you were going to sleep last night.
So with the actual test flight, everybody is standing around because the 3 of us have been so close to this project for the better part of almost 2 years. Everybody goes, oh, how are you guys feeling? And you just look at them and it's, your toes are trying to chew their way through your shoes. Your stomach is either in your throat or it's in your knees. So it was just it was a day of just mixed emotions because you don't know whether to laugh or to cry as soon as Dale takes off. So the first flight was not actually the first flight because over the radio, Dale called in India Victor Sierra, rolling 26 high-speed taxi. I'm still waiting for the initial test flight because in that high-speed taxi, he just took to the skies. So I don't know if the test flight actually took place.
Dale did a recording for us.
Hi there. My apologies for not being able to attend the meeting personally. Unfortunately, fortunately, it's my 10th anniversary today, and if I'm not home tonight, I'll probably face a divorce. However, I'd like to just give you guys some background and feedback on the flying of the Orion Cub that was developed and built by Skyworks Aviation at Krugersdorp. I was involved in the initial test flying and build of the Teddy, which they did several years ago, which was a wooden aircraft. And unfortunately, the concept of wood didn't really appeal to a lot of people, although I believe wood is a very good construction. And then Kevin and his crew decided to build a completely new airplane, very conventional with chrome moly tubing, fabric covered fuselage, and a all metal skin wing. And that became the Orion Cub. It's probably been a long process as far as I remember, in the region of about 2 years of the build. And they asked me to do the test flying. And obviously, like any new aircraft, there's a hell of a lot to be checked and done before you actually just get in and fly the airplane. So I was really involved a lot in going through the build process and checking all the bits and pieces to make sure that the aircraft's going to stay together for the flight. Anyway, to tell you about the flight, on the very first day, it was an early morning. I can't remember the date, probably 3 weeks ago. I did a couple of high-speed taxis, and I found it to handle exceptionally well. The tail came up easily. I had full rudder control on the runway, and within a few minutes of high-speed taxis, I took off and flew away. And I was really, really impressed at the performance. It must have been not more than 10-15 seconds after takeoff. I was able to take my hands and feet off the controls, and the aircraft flew absolutely straight and level. Since then, we've done about 17 hours. I've gone through some stall tests now. I've done flap settings, 0 flap settings, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, and 30 degrees. The figures so far is we're rotating at about 40 miles an hour. We're climbing at close to 1,000 foot a minute at 7,500 foot density altitudes. The stall speeds indicated clean are 35 miles an hour, and with full flaps 25 miles an hour. Obviously, there are some errors in the pitot positioning, so we're still waiting to get the final results there. But I have been able to land and stop in less than 100 meters, and I have been able to get airborne in less than 100 meters. Handling wise, the aircraft flies beautifully with very little adverse yaw. You can put it into a steep turn by using aileron only, and the ball will go out. Obviously, there is adverse yaw, but it kicks back in very quickly, and you only need minimal rudder to keep the ball in the middle in any turn configuration. We haven't flown it at absolute gross yet, but we've been at about 80% of gross weight. Currently, we're running on a Rotax 912 100 horsepower engine, 100 horsepower toast, obviously, so we're probably down to about 75 horsepower at these density altitudes. And with 80% of gross, we're climbing at about 500-600 foot per minute, and we're running a bit further on the runway. We're probably using about 300-350 meters to get airborne. Landing wise, it's got an undercarriage with shock absorbers on the main gear as well as the tail wheel, and it is just absolutely amazing how it absorbs a bit of a hard landing. I've been trying to do hard landings, which is not too easy, but it just sits down and stays down. It hardly ever bounces. I can do wheeler landings, I can do 3-pointers, I can really throw it around. I've even run it around on one wheel at a time. And about an hour ago, I took Brian Davidson for a quick flip. Now, Brian is a 27,000 hour airline pilot with also many, many hours of tail dragging instruction. And he was absolutely impressed with it.
By a way. Very nice.
Hi there.
Oh. Hello.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Well done, Aidan, Jean, and Kev. You know, something that you might not know is that Karen has built 16 tiger moths. 19. Oh, 19. I'll get it right eventually. And every one of them is a concourse build. I expected them to come along with an order book. I don't think they have details of the pricing yet, but the airplanes first got to be certified or not certified, get an ATF before they can start doing that, thinking of it. You know, just to come to the Wellom, that's Mike Patty, who made the Scrappy and also Draco. He had a thing on every one of his videos saying, okay, back to work. And at Oshkosh this year, he had shirts and they were selling like hotcakes saying, okay, back to work, but big, bold in the front. And that was his call sign. I'll tell him about Willem if I get there next year. I hope I do. Also something that I've noticed here, which is everybody else has too, no doubt, is that a good leader ensures there's continuity. Because you're not going to be the good leader all the time. Eventually, you're going to croak. And what you are doing here is passing on your skills and your knowledge to these youngsters. It's absolutely terrific, and it ensures that they are going to have a wonderful career. And with the ingenuity that they've developed here is just absolutely tremendous. I've experienced this. I've heard all of this about 5 times from these folks, and it's lovely to hear it again. Well done, you guys, and thanks for the time coming here, and also your family members that have come along. And I hope that your family back at home has also had a look at this. And with Neil's ingenuity here of having this thing publicized throughout, although we only had 49 people, I'm not sure how many there are now. But it's also people in America who are pretty influential, and you'll see what develops from this. And as I said, for the new members, that the network of EAA is very important, and so glad that you've been able to come and give us your time. As far as the publicity goes of what you've put together here is very nice, indeed very nice. And I must just also commend Athol for the lovely article that he put in African Pilot in the September issue, October issue. October issue on page 126 and 127. And thanks to you guys for coming along. And those of you who are not that technically minded like Arinki, baie dankie dat jy nie gaan slaap het nie terwyl jy die aangegaan het. Ek het vir jou geloer. All right. Hang on. And I also would like to say that we've also just acquired these flags. We had about 10 of them done before. So we've had 4 of them made. EAA has paid for them. We've got this one of Chapter 322, and there's an EAA National. So they will be flown with pride. Oh, and this wonderful windsock that was made by Vanessa Richardson. How about that? But we had to pay for that. It cost £2. Anyway, we're going to club together and we'll somehow handle it. But absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, Vanessa. And she deserves all the publicity that we can possibly give her for her generosity.
There'll be at Brits as well. So
okay.
Come and visit their store.
All right. So and Vanessa also makes airy cupboards, beautiful stuff. Really, really lovely. And I see another thing that was pointed out to me that, just hang on, I just want to go next door a second. I want to hear. Maria. Where's Mari?
Not yet. They've gone back.
Maury is online.
Carl?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll be back in a second. Just hang on.
Carl?
Yeah.
Mari's online.
Where's the packet, Mari?
Tim's got it.
Oh, okay. He's running around nervously like a chicken with its head chopped off.
It's on the bar, please, Carl.
We got it. Okay. In this is something for Neil. It's Neil's 21st birthday tomorrow, Neil, and this was organized by Mari. So from everybody here, happy birthday for tomorrow.
Thank you.
And to you three guys, thank you so much for being here and really appreciated your talk. Oh, thanks. Each one of those caps is an order. Okay, and all you can say 30 seconds.
Kevin, thanks very much for doing that live interview with me. And all those who are listening in, if you get our October edition, and it's free, you can actually see my full interview with Kevin in his hangar with that absolutely beautiful aeroplane behind him. It was wonderful, Kevin, and you guys have done an amazing job. The finish on that aeroplane is extraordinary, fantastic. Well done.
Well done, Ethel, and I must congratulate you on your brevity this evening. Folks, I think that gets us to the end of our proceedings this evening. Neil. And don't forget to scan the code. And to you three guys, thank you so much for being here and really appreciated your talk. Oh, thanks. Each one of those caps is an order. Okay, and all you can say 30 seconds.
Kevin, thanks very much for doing that live interview with me. And all those who are listening in, if you get our October edition, and it's free, you can actually see my full interview with Kevin in his hangar with that absolutely beautiful aeroplane behind him.
Thank you.
It was wonderful, Kevin, and you guys have done an amazing job. The finish on that aeroplane is extraordinary, fantastic. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done, that's all, and I must congratulate you on your brevity this evening. Folks, I think that gets us to the end of our proceedings this evening. Neil. And don't forget to scan the code. Right. The AGM of 322 will be at the next gathering, as Neil calls it, the first Wednesday of November. And every position in on the executive or on the committee is open for election. And as I mentioned earlier on, the more involved you are, the more enjoyable this whole setup is. And the last thing we want to see is somebody like Neil getting burnt out, which could happen very easily, although he seems as though to boundless energy. But is that it, Neil?
Yeah, I think we could.
Okay, and thanks for your attention, for attending, everyone.
Sorry, could I just mention,
If anybody did want to have an up close and personal look at the Cub, we will be at the Brit Sun and Fun on Saturday this weekend. We're going to be flying it in there, so if anyone wants to come and have a look, you're more than welcome.
Okay, I'll speak to Nigel Musgrave and see if we can possibly put you on that stand right next to the clubhouse or next to the little gate there, so that you can have some time there, because somebody else also, a lot of people will want it, and other aircraft will be judged at that spot. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Right, so everybody out there, please scan that, and I don't know what Neil does with it, but it does count. Right, that's it. Thanks, Neil, and also thanks for letting me have a go at this. It's quite that. Thank you. Cool. So,
We're going to shut down here. And we'll see you, all you guys at Brits.
Okay, there or there. Here we are. Here it is.